I'm going to show you in the next few moments how you can find out just about everything you need to know, just about everything you need to know, without spending any money or not too much money, but time, yes, but not much money. Everything you need to know to make a good decision about buying a franchise. That's what we're going to cover in part 2 of the A to Z's of buying a franchise, the pandemic version. In other words, it's a shortened version of what I normally teach at expos around the world. I'm John Hayes, and welcome back to part 2. Part 1, I gave you an overview. I discussed how important it is for you to make sure that you're a good match for franchising. We talked about some of the elements related to how to determine if you're a good fit. What should you buy? How much money should you spend? You shouldn't buy the hot franchise. That's the best way for you to get burned. What if you need some money? Who loans money? And people do loan money for franchising. We covered that in part 1. And of course, guidelines for helping you protect yourself. And I continue to do that here. Guidelines for what you need to know, what you should do, and how you can protect yourself before you invest in a franchise. There's no reason why anyone should buy a franchise and lose or fail. No reason. Because the data is all available to you, as I'm going to show you in part 2. It's all out there. It's only a matter of you taking the time to do the due diligence. And unfortunately, many people who buy franchises, number 1, they're not cut out for it. Number 2, they might be good for franchising, they picked the wrong brand. And number 3, they didn't do the due diligence. And shame on them, because franchising is the most powerful vehicle that we know worldwide for building wealth, for building your personal wealth, for creating the kind of lifestyle and professional life that you want. But this is all up to you. No one does it for you. A franchise broker is not your answer. You can use franchise brokers, of course. They can be very helpful, but don't think that they're going to do the work for you. They'll tell you, the good ones will tell you up front, it's your job to make the ultimate decision of what to buy, when to buy, where to buy it. And you do that based on your due diligence. You can tell I get a little heated by this because franchising is a gift. There isn't anything like franchising for the average person. And I don't mean that in a bad way. For regular folks like me, like you perhaps, for people who don't have millions to invest or to lose, for people who don't know a lot about business, teachers. I'm a teacher, but I've been a franchisee. I understand how that works. Teachers can become successful franchisees. People from any walk of life can become successful in business, in franchising. But you've got to follow the system. Not only, I'm not now talking about the franchisor's system, you got to follow that. You got to follow my system. The A to Z's of buying a franchise is a system. I'm laying it all out there for you. So in this segment of our discussion, if I can get to the second slide, I'm going to talk about the disclosure document, spend most of my time doing that. This is without doubt, most valuable tool that you have available, that anybody has available to them in making a decision about buying a business. How much money can you make? You all want to know that. That's what you're hoping I'm going to tell you, and I will tell you about it. I will tell you how you can find out how much money you're going to make in advance based on real data, not hype from anyone. We're going to talk about the fees, the franchise fee, the royalty fee, the advertising and marketing fee. A lot of people say, well, that's what's wrong with franchising. It costs too much. Well, any business may cost too much, but there are fees involved, and for good reasons, in franchising. And then, yeah, you want to seek the help of advisors, but you need to be careful to some extent about that. And more guidelines and tips to protect your interests in buying a franchise. Every franchisor in the United States is required by federal law to give you, the prospective buyer, a disclosure document in advance of you making a decision to buy the franchise. This is powerful. Go try to buy any other business and get a disclosure document from them. Some 23 points of information, including the audited financial statement of the franchisor. Try to go get that kind of information from someone else who you're in a non-franchise scenario and you're trying to buy their business. That doesn't happen. This is unheard of. And the disclosure document, which became a federal law in 1979, has really cleaned up franchising and is really the underlying powerhouse for franchising, because it forces franchisors to give you really more information than common sense would say, but it's required by law. This is your most valuable piece of information about a franchise offering. You got to read it. It's in English, plain English. You got to read it. I don't know if you can get it on audio or not. I don't think we've gone that step yet, but you can get somebody to read it to you if you don't like to read. It's in plain English. This is not a document for your attorney. This is a document for you. Whether you're 18 or you're 80, you're going to buy a franchise. You need the disclosure document. You need to sit down and read it. Yes, it's lengthy. Yes, it's detailed. But it tells you almost everything you need to know that will lead you to a great decision or a good decision about buying a franchise. And what it doesn't give you, the data that it doesn't give you, it tells you how to go get that data so that you know what you're doing up front. And yet, when people contact me and they're disgruntled, they're franchisees, they're unhappy, that no good franchisor, blah, 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 it's always the franchisor's fault. And yet when I say, well, what did the disclosure document say about your territory? Or what did the disclosure document say about the hours of operation? You're complaining that you don't want to work 7 days a week. You didn't know you had to do that. What's the disclosure document say about all these things? Because it does. They say, well, I didn't read that. I gave that to my attorney. Well, shame on you. You got what you deserve. You didn't invest any time in doing what the federal government, and the federal government doesn't generally help business people. Not to this extent. And the federal government requires this disclosure document since 1979, requires that it's written in English, requires that you have it in your possession for a minimum of 2 weeks before you can write a check and give it to the franchisor and before the franchisor can legally accept it. You have a cushion of time to go do your due diligence. And by the way, it's a minimum 2-week period of time. You can hold on to the disclosure document for months before you buy, if you want to. People will complain that, well, I don't go to franchise expos because those people, the expo, they're going to twist my arm. They're going to convince me to buy something. No one can make you buy anything today when it comes to franchising. It's illegal. People don't do it. Unheard of. It doesn't happen now and then. Yeah, there are violations. Of course, it's America. It's a free enterprise system. It's entrepreneurial. We cut corners. We take chances. That's what we do in the United States. Part of why we're great. But most people do not, most franchisors do not violate these regulations. It's too painful to do so. They have way too much to lose. So almost everything you need to know is in the disclosure document. You just got to get it. And the disclosure document is free. Talk more about that in a moment. It's also called the FDD, Franchise Disclosure Document. Used to be called the Uniform Franchise Offering Circular. The disclosure document simplifies it. It includes 21 items plus additional exhibits that include contracts and financial statements and receipts. You have to sign a receipt that says that you have received the disclosure document, and doesn't commit you to anything just because you signed that receipt. Must be presented to you at the first meeting where you're going to have a serious discussion about becoming a franchisee. Now, what's a serious meeting? Well, the franchisor gets to define what's serious. You walking up to a franchisor or calling a franchisor and saying, hey, I'm interested in your business. I want to become a franchisee. Give me the disclosure document. That's not a serious discussion by reasonable terms. The franchisor is going to want to ask you some questions, and we'll get into that as we go along. Let's take a look at the table of contents. I'm not going to cover all of this information, particularly not in the pandemic version where we've got a time crunch. But look, there, litigation. If the franchisor is being sued by franchisees or others, it's in item 3. Wow. They got to tell you up front. In the last 10 years, here are the lawsuits filed against us. Here's why they were filed against us. Here's the outcome of those lawsuits if they've been resolved. Bankruptcy. Have they experienced it? Has any member of the executive or leadership team or the officers of the company, have they been in a bankruptcy in the previous 10 years? How much is the franchise fee? Let's get that out there right away. And what are the other fees? And item number 7 is a great recap of all the fees that you can accept. How much is it going to cost you to buy a franchise? You go look at item 7. Takes all the guesswork out of it. What are the restrictions on sources of products and services? If you're in the hamburger business, that's an easy one. Can you buy the hamburger meat any place you want? Can you buy any kind you want? What are restrictions on sources? And yeah, this is where people say, yeah, that's where they get you because McDonald's owns the meat factory. Well, I don't know that McDonald's does own the meat factory. I don't think McDonald's owns the meat factory. They own real estate. But yes, McDonald's will tell you, if they do own the meat factory, they've got to tell you that. So yeah, I'm going to tell you what the sources are for my products and services that you must buy and you must sell. And if I have a percentage of the ownership, I've got to reveal that to you. Fair enough. What are your obligations as a franchisee? It's going to be a long list. Item 9. Is there any financing involved? Item 10. Hey, look at number 11. I'm going to tell you as the franchisor what I'm obligated to do. Not much. Short list. You know why? Because if I put too much in there, I'm going to get sued all the more. What I'm going to tell you is that I'm the franchisor, and I promise to train you and do my best to support you and to teach you how to successfully operate my franchise brand at your location for a specific period of time. End of story. Yeah, that's all I'm going to oblige myself to, because we know in America it's lawsuit happy and franchisors are going to get sued. If there's a specific territory, I'm going to tell you that in item 12. I'll show you the trademarks that I own, patents and copyrights in item 14. Are you obligated as a franchisee to participate in the operation of the business? In other words, you can't be an absentee owner in my business. There are some that you can. There are several, more than several franchise brands that will allow absentee ownership, but most will not. Restrictions on what you can sell. You sell what I say you're going to sell. We don't sell products that I don't know anything about as the franchisor. I don't know about the quality. I don't know if we can get it from a reliable source, and can we get it next year? And is it something we want to sell? Is it consistent? Do we have any patents or copyrights related to it? Do we know how to sell it? So you can't start selling what you want to sell as my franchisee. And look at number 17. And this takes the puffery out of lots of people who complain about, well, don't buy a franchise because you can never sell it again. Or don't buy a franchise because if you want to renew your franchise, and generally you buy a franchise for a period of time, 5, 10, maybe 20 years, maybe more. And if you're on a 10-year agreement and you want to renew it, even before you bought the first 10-year agreement, even before you bought the franchise originally, I'm going to tell you in item 17 what you need to do to renew for another 10 years. I'm telling you 10 years plus in advance. But can you sell? Can you terminate? How do you get out of it? The naysayers will tell you can't get out of those things. Well, I'm going to tell you right up front, before you ever become a franchisee, how to terminate the relationship. You want to terminate after 3 months? You want to terminate after 3 years? You want to terminate because there's some, God forbid, bad news in your life, your health, your family's life. You're getting a divorce. Something's happened. You need to terminate. All right, I'm going to tell you Here are the terms of termination, so that you go into this relationship knowing that you can terminate it. You have the authority to terminate it. I have the authority as the franchisor to terminate it. I'm laying it all out for you. You want to sell your rights to your franchise? That's called a transfer in franchising. You want to transfer the rights to your franchise to someone else who's going to pay you money? Okay, here are the details of doing so. And let's say you got a dispute with me, or I've got one with you. Rather than run to the lawyer and get the ball rolling on a lawsuit, we've agreed in advance to how we'll resolve disputes that will pop up. Doesn't mean that you can't sue me or that I can't sue you, but we've agreed up front on how we handle dispute resolution. Number 18, I really don't understand this one myself. You know, if I pay a famous person to say wonderful things about my franchise and why you should buy it, I think you're smart enough to know that I paid that famous person to say those things. But I've got to reveal that. If I pay $1 million for an endorsement, in item 18, I got to tell you that. My item 19 is optional. So my ability to tell you or to answer the question that everybody wants to know, how much money can I make if I become your franchisee? Item 19 is where you find that information, the financial performance representation, or what was commonly called an earnings claim. This is the only optional item of the 21, only 19 is optional. And most franchisors do not include an item 19. And there could be lots of reasons for that. Maybe it doesn't look so good. Maybe you don't make enough and they don't want you to know that from them. Doesn't mean you can't find that out. I'll tell you, if they don't have an item 19, I'll tell you how to still get the answer to the question, how much money can I make? Look at item 20. It's a list of outlets. Can you imagine this? You're in business. You've got customers. 10,000 customers. You know their name, their address, their phone number, their email address. You got 1,000 of them. Well, it doesn't matter. You've got a customer list. So does a franchisor. What's the franchisor's customer list? The franchisees. That's who makes the franchisor money. That's who pays the franchisor, not the public, not the consumer. Franchisees pay the franchisor fees. So franchisees are the franchisor's customers. In item 20, the franchisor has to provide you, a stranger, with a list of their customers by name, address, phone number, and email. It's mind-blowing to provide you with that kind of information. And then 21 is the audited financial statement, and then there are exhibits. Franchise agreement. You don't sign the disclosure document. You sign the franchise agreement. That's obligating you as a franchisee. I want to go back to that list of outlets. It's mind-blowing. I'm going to give you the list of all my customers, and you can go visit them. You have their addresses. Call them up. You can email them. All of them if you want, or, eeny, meeny, miny, mo, pick 12, which you should do, which is what I recommend you do. In fact, if I'm advising you on buying a franchise, first thing I'm going to tell you, forget all the hype. I don't care how great their video is. It doesn't matter to me that they have a powerful website and they've got endorsements galore. No. Okay, all fine, all good, maybe all true. No, can't prove those kinds of things. I can help you prove what's in this document, this disclosure document. And so what I'll tell you is, put the document aside for now, because it's a lot of reading. It's 4 hours, 8 hours, 22 hours of reading to get through it. It's a lot of time. Just take item 20, the list of outlets. Let's say they got 150 customers listed there. I want you to, any way you want, select 10, 12, 20. And I want you to make a spreadsheet. And remember, I told you at the end of part 1 to think about the questions you're going to ask franchisor, franchisees. Well, this is when you create a spreadsheet. You list your questions across the top. Maybe if you've got 8 to 10 questions would be reasonable. How much money can I make is a good question. You don't want to quite ask it that way because it's impolite. And then you put a list of 10, 20 down the left side of your spreadsheet. Put the names of the franchisees, and let's use phone numbers or email addresses or both. We're going to contact them. And this is going to take you some time. And I'll help you with the questions, or you came up with your questions on your own. One really good question that you want to ask a franchisee, knowing everything you know, Mr. or Ms. franchisee, about this business and about this franchisor, and you've been doing it for 3 years, 5 years, 20 years, 3 months, whatever it is. Would you buy the franchise all over again? Ask that 10 times of 10 franchisees. If you can't get at least 8 of them to enthusiastically say yes, easy. Drop that disclosure document in your trash bin. You don't need it. Don't need to read it. You're not going to buy that franchise. Okay, 7 of them enthusiastic. Okay, maybe you. Depends on how much of a risk taker you are. You ask these questions up front of the customers who know. And these people aren't going to lie to you. Maybe 1 or 2 will exaggerate. You didn't know that you were calling the franchisor's brother-in-law. That can happen. Sister-in-law, mother, whatever it might be, a relative. You didn't know that. But you're talking to 10 or 20. They're not all going to be relatives, probably. And so before you commit too much time to read the disclosure document, you've asked the questions that you need to know about investing in this brand, whether or not you should do so. And they told you, no, we wouldn't do it. No, it's not a good deal. No, we haven't made any money. No, we make less money now, work more hours. I need to go back to a job. In fact, I have a part-time job to support my full-time franchise. These are the kinds of things you're going to find out in some cases. Because even though there are 4,000 different franchise brands out there in North America, they're not all created equally. Some are a whole lot better than others. And your job is to go find the ones that are right for you based on your skill set, based on your personality. And you can do it. This is not costing you any money. It's time. It's your time. I realize that's valuable, but you're not paying thousands of dollars out to someone. Could you? Yes, you can go hire somebody, but it's a bad idea. I don't recommend that you do that. You do your own due diligence, and you begin with item 20. Most of the time, you're going to get a fairly good report from franchisees. But if you do this with 2 or 3 different brands, which takes more time and effort, yes, but look, we're talking about you spending $100, $150 to $350,000. Is it worth 3 months of doing part-time research to do the due diligence to find out if that's a good investment? I think it is. And I'm not suggesting that it's always going to take 3 months. It could take you 3 days to do the research if you did it full-time, things work out. Probably a little bit more than that. This is a powerful tool for you to have in your hands. And you want to make sure that you get the disclosure document from the franchisor as soon as possible. It's not easy to get it because look at the information they're giving you. It's just, again, mind-blowing that any business should have to give you, a stranger, that depth of information. So it's not necessarily easy to get it, but it's free when you do get it. And yes, you can buy anybody's disclosure document, just about any franchisor's disclosure document, for $100 or so on the internet. It probably will be the most recent, but could be a year old. Disclosure documents are updated annually, usually in the spring, because they have to have the previous year's, calendar year's, audited financial statement. Franchisors want to give out as many of these documents as they can, because they can't sell a franchise until they disclose a prospect. They must disclose. That 2-week period of time must occur under penalty of severe, under laws that contain severe penalty if they don't properly disclose. But franchisors also only want to give the disclosure document to people who are qualified to get it. Why would I give it to you if I have a $200,000 investment required and you're only looking to spend $100,000? That's the best you can do. Why would I give you my disclosure document with all this information? By the way, there are no secret formulas required in the disclosure document. KFC doesn't give you the Colonel's recipe in the disclosure document or at any other time. Franchisees don't know the secret recipe. You're not going to know the franchisor's secrets. You don't need to. It's not in the disclosure. But they don't want to give the disclosure to people who can't actually make good on the process of becoming a franchisee. So they're going to want to know if you are qualified. Do you have the money? Do you want to open in a reasonable amount of time, not 6 years from now or 2 years from now, in the next 6 months or so or a year? Do you want to open in an area where we can sell a franchise? You want to open in the state of Ohio, and our brand is sold out in Ohio, has been for years. So no need to give you the disclosure. Now, if you tell me you'll move to Pennsylvania, okay, yeah, we can talk. We'll give you the disclosure. We also want to know about your personality. There are things about you that we need to know and things about us that you need to know. It's all in the disclosure. Or, as I said before, if it's not in the disclosure, it at least provides you with data that you can use to go get the additional information. So I don't file an item 19, so you won't find the answer to how much money you can make in the disclosure document. And yet I'm giving you the names of all my franchisees, phone number, email address, location address as well. Why not ask my franchisees how much money you can make? And there are ways that you should do that. Franchisees don't like surprises. Franchisees like to be helpful. And they're not restricted to answer any question that you ask, whereas the franchisor is restricted. Without filing an item 19, the franchisor can't answer by law the question, how much money will I make? And even if they do provide an item 19, I would ask the franchisees. I would tell them straight up, look, I'm buying this franchise and I intend to follow the system. And here's my background. And here's how much money I'm going to spend. And I need to take home $130,000 a year. Is that reasonable, Mr. or Ms. Franchisee? You've been at this for 5 years. You're not asking, do they make $130,000? You're telling them, this is what I need to make. And the answers are going to be no, or yes, or well, after 18 months, you'll start making 130, or after 3 years, you might make 130,000. This document leads you to what you need to know. So the franchisor is going to ask you to complete a qualification report or an application. Nobody likes that word application. That sounds serious. Qualification report sounds easier. And a lot of people say, well, no, I don't want to fill that out because then I'm obligated. You're not obligated until you sign the franchise agreement, which mirrors the content of the disclosure document. You're not obligated until you sign the franchise agreement. Only then do you pay the franchisor's fees. So you're going to have to fill out a qualification report. Yeah, you're going to have to give them your social security number. If you're a C, you're not doing that. If you're an S, you're going to think about it long and hard. On the DISC scale, you're going to have to give them your banker's name. You're going to have to tell them how much money you have. You're going to have to tell them about a bankruptcy. These are questions that are going to pop up that the franchisor needs to know in advance. Yeah, they need your phone number, the real one. Don't transpose the numbers because that destroys trust. And they want your email address, and they're going to call you. They're going to call you maybe when you don't want them to, but simply ask them, don't call me on the weekends. Don't call me after 4 o'clock. Don't call me other than Tuesdays between 10 and 4, or I'll call you. You're going to have to provide this information. A lot of people can't do that. Understandable. But then the franchisor doesn't have to give you the FDD. So I want you to call and visit franchisees. I say visit at least one franchisee. This is a repeat of what I said earlier about item 20, where the franchisor has to list the outlets or the franchisees in the system. Look at the third bullet. They even have to tell you about their terminated or canceled franchisees. And there's some good stories. If you can get a former franchisee who was terminated, find out why. These folks are, I try to get them all the time, not because I'm buying a franchise, but usually when I'm writing about franchises, I try to find terminated franchisees. The franchisor is not required to track the franchisee's phone number and where they're living from year to year. That's not required. They're going to give you their last known address, last known email address, last known phone number. And probably those last two items, the phone number and the email address, they don't work because that was the franchisee's phone number, which was disconnected when they were terminated. And their email, they were banned from the system. So they're not going to get email through the system anymore. But existing franchisees can often have given me the names and numbers of terminated franchisees because I asked for that. But you've probably got enough to do just talking to active franchisees. And your franchisor is not allowed to tell you, hey, these are the franchisees you can call. No, you can call anybody you want. They're not allowed to say to you, well, call these 5, but hey, don't call this guy. We're going to terminate him. No, they can't tell you that. They can tell you that, but that's illegal. You can do eeny, meeny, miny, mo and pick the 10 you want or the 20 you want, go forwards, go backwards, start in the middle, whatever you want to do. And by the way, sometimes it pays off. One of your questions is to ask franchisees, can you, based on what our discussion, can you think of other franchisees who have had experiences similar to mine, questions similar to mine, somebody else who you know in the franchise network who I should talk to? This is going to keep you busy for a while, but this information is very valuable. So I've covered this already. Item 19, it's the financial performance representation. Most franchisors do not include it. It's optional. So the franchisor won't be able to legally tell you how much money you can make. Get that information from the franchisees. So let's jump to fees. Time is marching on and I want to cover as much as I can. This is an area that irritates a lot of people. You mean I got to pay $50,000 up front to become a franchisee, just to become a franchisee? Yeah, you do. And maybe it's only $10,000 or $20,000. But it could be as high as $75,000 for some franchises. You want to join the country club? There's a fee. You want to join my franchise network? There's a fee. Because you're going to use my name above your door of your business to make money. You're going to use my system. It's cost me millions of dollars to create the system. But I've boiled it down. I've put it in writing. I built training all around it. 10 days, 20 days of training all around the system. I'm going to deliver that to you. I provide support to you. I provide educational resources to you. When you join my franchise and I put you through my 12-day training program, you have the, let's say, an MBA in my brand. So yeah, you paid me $40,000. And by the way, you ought to ask me before you buy, what do you do with my $40,000, Mr. Franchisor, Ms. Franchisor? What do you do with my franchise fee? And they should be able to tell you, here's what I do with your $40,000 franchise fee, which, no, you can't pay it to me over 5 years, $8,000 at a time. No, you can't borrow money from me to, no, we're not going to break it up. We're not going to pay it after, you're not going to pay it after. It's upfront. I require that of everybody. It makes a commitment. You give me $40,000 and here's how I'm going to spend it. I'm going to train you for 12 days, 14 days, 32 days, whatever it is. I'm going to send a team to your location after I train you. They're going to spend 3 days with you or 3 weeks with you out of that $40,000. I'm going to give you documents, videos, training videos that you can use with your employees, that you can use to refresh your memory of how to treat a customer, how to sell our product, or how to do the marketing. I'm going to give you operations manuals. I'm going to give you access to the backside of my business. I'm going to show you how to make money in this business. I'm going to introduce you to our attorney who's going to advise you, to our HR people who are going to advise you. All of this I'm going to pay for out of the $40,000 that you gave me. No, by the way, you remember Mary, your salesperson, the lady who you contacted when you went to our website, you said you wanted to buy a franchise. Mary followed up with you, and you've been with Mary for the last 90 days. She provided the disclosure document to you. She's answered all your questions. She's brought you to our discovery day. Remember Mary? Of course you remember Mary. You love Mary. Mary did a good job for you. And Mary makes a commission on every franchise she sells. I give Mary $15,000. So right away, out of the $40,000, I've only got $25,000 left because Mary gets 15. Or the franchise broker who you used got 15 or 20, or maybe the entire 40 in some cases. So it's a good question, and you ought to ask that question of the franchisor. What do you do with the franchise fee? Most of the money better be used, ideally should be used to reinvest in you. So in a sense, you're buying an education. You're paying $40,000, $50,000, $75,000, $10,000, $15,000, whatever it is, you're buying an education. Franchisor is going to train you, teach you, support you, put you on the path to become a successful franchisee. So that's the upfront franchise fee. Well, now what's this royalty? A nickel out of every dollar, 5% royalty out of every gross sale. So every dollar I bring in to my franchise business, you mean to tell me I'm going to give you a nickel every time I do that? Yes, you are. And that's probably on the low side. Probably giving me more like 7.5 cents out of every dollar. The royalty is maybe 5%, but could be as high as 9, 10%, some franchise systems. Well, here's another good question. Mr. or Ms. Franchisor, it's a lot of nickels you collect. You got 300 franchisees. Average franchise is doing $850,000 a year in gross sales, times 5%. That's a lot of nickels. What do you do with all those nickels? Fair question. And if I'm honest and I'm the franchisor, I'll tell you right out of the chute, pay myself a big salary. I'm the founder of the company. I created the system, paid for the system, continue to maintain the system, employ a lot of people, not only Mary, who helped you buy a franchise, but Jimmy, your support, your coach. I paid Jimmy $175,000 a year. You want me to eliminate Jimmy or reduce Jimmy's salary? No, you love Jimmy. Jimmy's great at support, answers questions for you. But I've got 5 Jimmys. So yeah, I'll show you how I use the nickels. And oh, by the way, I make a profit. That dirty word, profit, that somebody told you previously that I was going to take advantage of you because I'm going to take that nickel out of every dollar and I get my money, but you don't get your money and I don't care. It's just not true. But I'm going to make a profit. If I don't make a profit, you really want to invest? You saw my financial statement. I gave you the information. And by the way, you don't really even have to ask me about what I do with the royalty money, because in my financial statement, you can track it. You can see how much I'm spending on my operation at the franchisor level. So I know your accountant told you that 5% is too much, because accountants tend not to like franchising, except for accountants who are franchisees and who understand the wisdom of training and ongoing support, which the royalty underwrites. You want training today and you want support 2 years from now, 20 years from now. You want to be able to pick up the phone and ask me questions. You want me to help you develop new marketing programs? You want me to help you implement advertising? You want me to show you how to deal with customers, how to deal with social media, how to deal with your business when something goes upside down? I'm going to do all that. You can count on me. And I do it for a nickel out of every dollar you make. Is it worth it? Again, that's a question to ask franchisees. You've been paying a royalty, Mr. Ms. Franchisee. You've been paying a royalty. Is it worth it paying that royalty? Successful franchisees will tell you absolutely. Then there's the advertising or marketing fund fee. That could be 2%, 5%. It could be on the national level. You put in 3%, but locally, you've got to spend another 3%. It's required by the franchise agreement that you signed, because I know that's part of the system. I know we need to be on TV. I can't put us on TV out of the nickel, but together, collectively, if the franchise network will all put 3 cents out of every dollar into the national marketing fund fee, and we can generate $1 million a year or 80 million a year, we're a powerhouse. We're going to be marketing our brand on not just social media, not just in print media, which unfortunately gets the least of the money these days, most of the time. And we're going to be on social media. We're going to own it. But we've got the money to do it because it's in the marketing fund. And by the way, the franchisor, that's not my money as the franchisor. That's your money. That's the franchisee's money, the advertising or marketing fund money. That's yours. And you'll probably, we want to find this out up front, you or other franchisees can be on a committee that decides how to spend that marketing fund money, because it's not mine to spend. It's not my money as the franchisor. I can manage it for you if you ask me to. I can account for it if you ask me to. I can help set up meetings of the marketing committee. We can bring in advertising people to create campaigns for us, but we don't, franchisor, it's dangerous for me to spend your money. So I'm not going to make those kinds of decisions. I'm going to ask you as a franchise group, let's do this together. So those are the fees that are involved. A lot of people say, well, fees are what's wrong with franchising. Well, there are a lot more successful franchisees who will tell you, no, fees make franchising, successful franchising, possible. Somebody's got to pay for this, and franchisees do so. Remember I told you about item 7? If you want to see an overview of how much money it's going to cost you to become a franchisee, well, item 7 gives you these expenditures. They'll be different with every franchise company. And when do you pay, and how much do you pay, and what method? Is it refundable? And what's the total? In this case, you're going to spend a minimum of $101,100 and a maximum of $189,100 to become a franchisee of this particular brand. This is out of the disclosure document, item 7. And you'll know right away. You're only looking now at the disclosure document. So you haven't spent any money, and you'll know right away, well, I can't afford $101,000. This business is too rich for me. I need to go look at another one. Or you'll know that it's going to cost me at most about $190,000. And how can you get that money? Because you don't have $190,000, but you have $70,000. Can the bank with an SBA guarantee get you a couple $100,000 more than you need to become a franchisee? This is the kind of information that you get out of the disclosure document. Well worth your time. So then you got to, going back to the fees, is the upfront lump sum payment of the franchise fee, is it worth it? Ask franchisees that question. It's your right of entry. You're not going to become a franchisee without paying it. Gives you access to my system. My system is worth millions. My system has helped many, many franchisees become millionaires. If that's true, I'm not just blowing smoke. If it's true, you'll find that out through my disclosure document. And in return for that upfront lump sum payment, you are going to get my brand name and all of my expertise for as long as you're a franchisee. Is that worthwhile? Same with the royalty. Okay, that's still on the franchise fee, but on the royalty. Is it worth paying the royalty? It's used to fund the franchisor's operation, including profits, including the CEO, founder CEO's big fat paycheck. Is that is it justifiable? Ask the franchisees. They pay the royalty, but they think they should continue paying the royalty. I tell you in one area alone, research and development. You are not going to have time as a franchisee to do research and development looking at your business for the next 5 to 10 years. You're not going to have time to do that. As a franchisee, whether you own 1 unit or 20 units, you're busy, busy, busy. And you don't have time to take a week out or 10 hours out of a week for a year to do research and development to determine if your product is still going to be viable in 3 years or 5 years, or how it's going to change. Well, the taxi industry found that out. Were they prepared for the Uberization of their industry? No, still suffering. Well, in franchising, franchisors generally have someone who's doing research and development, either on their team in-house or they outsource that. And this is extremely valuable for you to know. How is the franchisor helping to protect me going forward? And if they're not doing research and development, I would question whether or not that's a good franchise to invest in. This royalty-free franchising, it doesn't exist. If the franchisor says to you, we don't charge a royalty-free, the question you want to ask is, how do you make any money? How do you make a profit? If there's no royalty, nobody's paying you 5% out of their gross sales, how do you make any money? Oh, well, the truth is, you pay a fee that's built in to the products that you buy from us. Oh, so there really is a royalty. It's just a built-in royalty. That's insulting to me. And yet franchisors use that. No royalty, royalty-free franchising. You can have that because royalty-free, truly royalty-free, means no profit. And that means you're not going to be around in the future when I need you. It's a joke. Stay away from it. The advertising marketing fund fee, you need money to market your business. And the system will tell you how much money you're going to need to market your business. And it's hard for you to spend millions of dollars out of your own franchise to market your business, but you can spend millions of dollars as a franchise network. That's part of the synergy that we get out of a franchise network. Let's put our funds together. We're in this together. We're not competitive. I've got my territory and you've got your territory. And if we go together and put our money into a common fund, which the money belongs to us, we can go out and hire the ad agency that we want to use to promote our business. Is it worth it, Mr. Ms. Franchisee? Does the marketing fund work? Is the marketing working for your business? If there are any other costs, you've already been told about them in item 7, including money to live. How are you going to live without a paycheck? Now, there are some franchises where you start making money day one. In fact, let me point this out quickly. Not everybody's cut out to buy a franchise and start it from ground zero. Some people would be horrible at the startup phase in franchising because you don't make any money for 90 days, maybe a year and a half. But you still want to buy a franchise and you're a good fit for franchising, just not a startup. Well, there are about 1 million franchise outlets in America. And every day, franchisees make decisions to sell. And maybe they're selling businesses that are highly profitable with millions of dollars coming back to the franchisee business. You can go buy that. That's going to cost you more than a startup, but it's not going to cost you the 90 days or the year and a half of breaking even or making no money. because this is a viable business that already exists. From day one, when you take over, you're making what the franchisee was previously making. And all the same rules and regulations apply here. There still is a disclosure document involved. There's a franchise agreement involved. There's training and support involved. So if you say, well, I can't live without a paycheck, then you should start looking at buying an existing franchise. More expensive, maybe out of your hands, but it's an option for a lot of people. A lot of people want to be multi-unit or multi-concept operators, and they don't want to start up each of those businesses. And this is the way to do it. We hear all the time about so-and-so acquired 50 ABC franchises, whatever the brand is. You need a business plan most of the time. I told you about the Small Business Development Center in part 1. You can go to sba.gov. If you haven't written a business plan and you need some help, then go attend an SBDC class or find an advisor to help you. Maybe your accountant can help you get some professional assistance. Ultimately, you've got to decide if this is worth the risk. Does it make sense financially to invest in this franchise? There are some advisors who can help you, but with some caution. Your accountant. I told you before, accountants don't always like franchising. They choke over a royalty. They don't think anybody should pay a royalty. Oftentimes, accountants don't think that they should pay a royalty. So find the franchisee's accountant. Ask the franchisee, can you recommend an accountant who knows the system? And oftentimes, 10 franchisees use the same accountant, or the accountant is very familiar with the franchise network. Same thing with a lawyer, and you do need a lawyer, but you need a franchise lawyer. You don't want your divorce attorney. You don't even want your business attorney. You want a franchise attorney. This is a specialty of the law. And a good franchise attorney may have helped 10 franchisees of the same network that you want to buy become franchisees, or advised those prospective or existing franchisees. So they know the system already. A good franchise lawyer will be able to say, I know that system. And here's what you need to know. Here are the negatives of that system. Good franchise attorneys will not tell you to buy or not buy. Good franchise attorneys will tell you the good, the bad, and the ugly of the franchise based on what they know and based on the disclosure document. You can use a franchise broker. It's generally free. It's coming out of your franchise fee. When you pay the $40,000 to the franchisor, the broker gets paid. So while you don't pay anything up front to a broker, they will help you explore your personality, explore franchising. They'll teach you about franchising. They'll put you on webinars, and they will introduce you to their clients who are franchisors. But there are no brokers that represent all the franchise companies, all the franchise brands that are out there to sell. There's not one broker who represents all of them. So you've got to be careful. You're going to be introduced to the franchisor's client, to the franchise broker's client base. Nothing wrong with that. And brokers are, I've got great friends who are brokers. I'm happy to advise you more about brokers. I'm happy to send you to brokers. Send me an email, john_hayes@pba.edu, or go to howtobuyafranchise.com. Contact me there, and I'm happy to tell you about brokers. Happy to tell you about accountants and lawyers as well. You can use the franchisor as an advisor. You use franchisees as an advisor. So you can get a lot of help. And again, you know, all of this, with the exception of the fees you'd have to pay to an accountant and to a lawyer, all of this is free. Free help. So you negotiate any open items that you have with the franchisor. There won't be many. Franchisors generally do not negotiate. Anybody who tells you that they do, or an attorney who says, well, let me handle you, and I'll go to this franchisor and I'll wipe out that franchise fee, or I'll knock it in half. Just run. with your closed checkbook, because that's not how franchising works. So if you negotiate maybe territory or maybe training, or maybe if you're coming into a business, into a franchise from a similar business, same kind of business, and you already have 20 clients and you don't want to pay royalties on those 20 clients, okay, negotiate that. That's doable. Ultimately, you got to go for it. You sign the franchise agreement. And congratulations, you become a franchisee. You've made a decision to use the most powerful business system that exists in the world to build your financial wealth. Does it work for everyone? I've told you repeatedly, no. Might not work for you. You might not be willing to follow the franchisor system, or you might be willing to follow it, but it's a bad system. Again, it's on you. I can't make that sound better. It's on you. It's your responsibility. But it's a gift. You have this disclosure document. You have all this information, including the information that I've given you, that shows you how to protect yourself. If you're a good fit for franchising, find out which brands work for you and go for it. Become a franchisee. It's going to be well worth your effort. I spent a lot of time in the presence of successful franchisees. I know unsuccessful franchisees. I hear from franchisees who fail for any number of reasons, and sometimes it is the franchisor's fault. But those are the rare occurrences. There's a network out there internationally of very happy franchisees. All you need to do is go find them. And you can do that through these steps that I've given you. You need more information? I'd be happy if you go to Amazon and buy any one of my books on franchising. I've got a bunch of them. Go to booksbyjohnhayes.com or howtobuyfranchise.com. That's where the disc profile is available to you free. Franchise.org is the International Franchise Association, the best resource in the world for people who want to buy a franchise, people who want to become franchisors. IFE Info, the International Franchise Expo, ifeinfo.com will tell you about that expo, when it's going to occur, where it'll occur, but it'll tell you about other regional expos that are sponsored by the same company. Titus Center for Franchising, please come to West Palm Beach and visit us in South Florida. You'll be amazed. Come to one of my board meetings, my advisory board meetings, or come when we have a special speaker. Come and be a speaker. If you're a franchisor or franchisee, my students want to hear from you. Go to YouTube and find the How to Buy a Franchise show, which is where I interview franchisors and franchisees. Contact me at the Titus Center for Franchising, John_Hayes at pba.edu. It's the Titus Center for Franchising.com or howtobuyafranchise.com. I hope you make a good decision about your future in franchising. I appreciate you spending this time with me in parts 1 and part 2 of the A to Z's of buying a franchise. If there's anything I can do to help you, please contact me, John_Hayes at pba.edu. On behalf of the Titus Center, on behalf of good franchisors and franchisees everywhere, God bless you. May you find a way to make franchising work in your future.